The phone that's probably in your hand right now, the medicine in your cabinet, even the shampoo in your shower. What if I told you they all share an ancient blueprint? It's true. So many of the marvels of our modern world have these hidden origins, drafted thousands of years ago. Today, we're going to uncover that blueprint.
So what is the connection? The answer, believe it or not, lies in a single ancient civilization. In this explainer, we're going to connect the dots between the code that runs our computers, a miracle metal that has baffled scientists for centuries, and yeah, a word you probably use every single day. Our journey starts with an idea that literally changed everything.
Okay, so our first stop is in the world of pure thought, with what might just be the single most important invention in all of human history. We're talking about the mathematical system that underpins our entire digital world, and it all starts with the concept of nothing.
Now, what's really wild about this quote is the context. Laplace is pointing out that this system, something we teach to little kids, completely escaped the genius of minds like Archimedes. It was not obvious at all. And to really get why it was so brilliant, we need to separate how we talk about numbers from how we write them down.
See, for ages, civilizations could say a number like 207. That's nomenclature, easy enough. But writing it down? That was a mess. The Egyptians had to repeat symbols over and over. The Romans had their whole complex system. The revolution, right here on the left, was creating a written system where a symbol's position gives it its value. And for that to work, you absolutely need a placeholder for an empty spot. You need a symbol for nothing.
And this is where the idea gets truly deep. In Sanskrit, shunya wasn't just an empty void. It was a void jam-packed with potential. I love how one mathematician put it. It was like coining the nirvana into dynamos. It's not just an empty space, it's the potential that allows a 2 to become 20 or 200. That single powerful concept, a nothing that contains everything, is the philosophical root of the binary code that powers our entire digital lives. It's the first, and maybe the most crucial part of our ancient blueprint.
Okay, so from that incredibly profound idea, let's shift to something you can actually reach out and touch. We're going from the abstract world of math to a very real, very solid engineering marvel. Because in Delhi, there stands a 6-ton iron pillar that has defied science and time for over 1,000 years.
Just let that number sink in for a second. For 1,600 years, this thing has stood out in the open, getting blasted by monsoons, scorching heat, modern pollution, you name it. For any normal iron structure, that's just unbelievable. But believe it or not, that isn't even the most impossible part.
Zero. Rust. No paint, no special coating, nothing. For more than a century, scientists were completely stumped. How could a 1,600-year-old iron pillar be totally immune to corrosion? Well, the answer wasn't something they put on the surface. It was deep inside the metal itself. So, the whole secret is in the chemistry. See, modern steel uses stuff like sulfur and magnesium to make it strong, but the pillar has none of that. Instead, it has this unusually high amount of phosphorus. And it turns out, what modern metallurgists would consider an impurity was actually the secret ingredient to its immortality. What happens is, this process basically builds a microscopic suit of armor around the pillar. That phosphorus reacts with the air and water to form this protective layer called Mesua white. It is incredibly thin, almost invisible, but it's so tough and so stable that it has shielded this pillar for 1,600 years. It's a forgotten science we're only now starting to figure out. Another part of the blueprint, written not in numbers, but in metal.
All right, so from engineering metal, let's turn to engineering the human body. Because long before the sterile operating rooms we have today, one man in ancient India was documenting surgical procedures with a level of detail and sophistication that is just staggering. His name was Sushruta.
And we're not talking about just a collection of folk remedies here. Sushruta's work, which is called the Sushruta Samhita, was a systematic, comprehensive guide to medicine and surgery. I mean, the sheer scale of his work is why he's so often called the father of surgery. And a surgeon is only as good as their tools.
The level of organization here is just incredible. He didn't just have a few generic tools. He designed 121 distinct instruments, each for a very specific task. He understood that shape mattered, even drawing inspiration from the claws and beaks of animals. And, crucially, he insisted on keeping them sharp and clean. But it wasn't just about the tools. It was about the whole methodology.
This list right here just shows you his systematic mind. He categorized all of surgery into these 8 fundamental procedures. So whether he was removing a tumor, draining an abscess, or stitching up a wound, it fell into one of these categories. I mean, this is the foundation of surgical science itself.
Sushruta was performing operations that would seem incredibly advanced for his time. His method for reconstructing a nose using a flap of skin from the forehead is, to this day, still known as the Indian method. He was also performing a form of cataract surgery, basically clearing a patient's clouded lens to help them see again. It's just an unbelievable legacy, a blueprint for healing the human body.
All right, now for our final piece of the blueprint. And while it might not have the same, monumental impact as inventing zero, this last piece really shows how that ancient design is woven into the simple, personal fabric of our daily lives. In fact, we're heading right into your bathroom.
The word shampoo actually comes from the Hindi word champi, which means to massage or to knead. It originally referred to a head massage using natural cleansers like soap berries. When British traders experienced this in the 18th century, they brought both the practice and the word back home to Europe. It took a little while, but eventually in 1927, it became the liquid product we all know today. So yeah, every time you wash your hair, you're echoing an ancient Indian tradition.
So what do we have when we put all these different pieces together? Well, you start to see the clear outlines of an ancient blueprint that really did shape the world we live in today, in ways that are both incredibly profound and surprisingly personal. I mean, think about it. From the abstract concept of zero, which literally built our digital world, to the very physical, immortal pillar, which is a masterpiece of a lost science. From the genius who laid out the fundamental principles of surgery, to the simple act of shampooing your hair. These aren't just historical fun facts. They are the foundational pillars of our modern world, and they were all drawn from the same ancient blueprint.
And this really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If these monumental contributions were kind of hidden in plain sight all this time, what else have we missed? What other ancient blueprints are just out there waiting for us to find them? It's a pretty fascinating question to think about.
Okay, before we finish up, let's see what you retained from all that with a quick little round of trivia. Are you ready?
That ultra-thin protective layer that's formed by all that phosphorus and the iron? What's its scientific name? The answer is mesoite. A layer that's just 20 microns thick has protected 6 tons of iron for 16 centuries. Amazing.
Remember, it wasn't just a void. The word Shuni carried this much deeper philosophical meaning. It was the potential for growth, or the possibility of creation from a state of nothingness, coining the nirvana into dynamos, right?
His famous Indian method for reconstructing a nose was actually developed out of a pretty grim necessity. It was a response to the common punishment of nose amputation. So Sushruta's work wasn't just about medical advancement. A lot of the time, it was about restoring a person's dignity. Thanks for joining me for this one.